Now available on Kickstarter, John Haynes at Death's Door. The man who rules the world takes on the Greek god of death in this all-new Kickstarter exclusive John Haynes comic book. Put in your pledge and get the standard, variant, or retro covers of John Haynes at Death's Door and other great stretch goal rewards on Kickstarter today. A jury in a civil trial ruled against Bill Cosby in a civil suit brought against him by a woman who alleged that he sexually assaulted her at the Playboy Mansion. Now, your Judy Huff testified that Bill Cosby assaulted her at the Playboy Mansion by putting his hands down her pants and exposing himself in a blue room at the Playboy Mansion. Now, Ms. Huff's story has very little credibility because she has changed her story constantly since 2014, and the dates and the times that this event allegedly transpired range from 1973 to 1974 to 1975, and there are no possible records that state that she was at the mansion where Hugh Hefner allegedly kept meticulous records. Now, in spite of all of this evidence that practically shows that Ms. Huff's story was inconsistent, a jury decided to go out here and rule against Bill Cosby and ordered him to pay $500,000 in punitive damages. Now, this whole case may seem open and shut as related to this civil trial, but when I take a critical examination of what transpired in that civil trial, it looks like the white supremacists in Hollywood were looking to try to get some sort of symbolic justice against Bill Cosby after losing their case in criminal court. Now, what's happening here with Bill Cosby eerily mirrors what transpired with former football legend O.J. Simpson when the Los Angeles prosecutor's office could not get a criminal conviction against O.J. Simpson. They sought to try to get their symbolic justice or revenge, depending on what opinion you have, in civil court. Now, they could not prove that O.J. Simpson, beyond a reasonable doubt, murdered Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman, so the Brown and Goldman families decided to sue O.J. Simpson in civil court and get a $33 million judgment, which was basically a Pyrrhic victory. Yes, on the surface, they got a judgment against O.J. Simpson, but O.J. Simpson was not fazed at all. And this is what seems to be happening here in the case of Bill Cosby. The overzealous prosecutor Kevin Steele could not get a criminal conviction to stick that as related to his judicial misconduct, and now that he cannot get a conviction, the white supremacists in Hollywood are looking to try to get a symbolic victory against Bill Cosby by saying that, oh, we won a case in civil court based on a preponderance of the evidence. But when you look at the evidence, it really wasn't followed, because if anything, if you look at the case of these so-called allegations, you would think that Judy Huff would be filing a lawsuit against Hugh Hefner's estate and Playboy Enterprises, because it was Hugh Hefner's estate and Playboy Enterprises that would have gone out here and allowed her on their property. And since this incident took place on Playboy property, you would think that Judy Huff would be out here suing Playboy Enterprises and Hugh Hefner for liability. However, if she were to file that case, the Hugh Hefner estate and Playboy Enterprises, they would be out here filing a thorough lawsuit where they would go out here and point out all of the records showing where somebody is, and they would also be going through the archives of video and film, also showing where this woman is. So sure, whole story would definitely fall completely apart in the face of a challenge by Playboy Enterprises, and that whole case when Playboy Enterprises were to come in with the video and the logs would show her with some culpability as a minor entering into a place where she, knowing she was underage, was in this place and trespassing. But they don't want to do that because it doesn't fit the narrative, and the narrative that the white supremacists in Hollywood want to push is the demonization of Bill Cosby. And they want to push the demonization of Bill Cosby because they want to destroy Bill Cosby's legacy, because they don't want other black men and black women to be inspired by all of the work that Mr. Cosby has done over the years of his life. And since they don't want people to be inspired by the work that Mr. Cosby has done for the good of the black community, what they want to do is try to find a way to demonize Bill Cosby in his older age. Now, the campaign to go after Bill Cosby and destroy his credibility by saying he was an adulterer has failed. The campaign to try to criminalize him by saying that he participated in a sexual assault of Andrea Constand has failed, because that whole case was thrown out of court because your overzealous prosecutor Kevin Steele went out here and used an affidavit that wasn't supposed to be used. So that case has failed. So now what they want to do is they want to continue their campaign by digging up this almost 50-plus-year-old story, and they want to use this 50-plus-year-old story as another way to try to demonize Bill Cosby and try to present him as some sort of black brute. And even though the jury wound up ruling against Bill Cosby based on their interpretation of the preponderance of the evidence, when you look at the true preponderance of the evidence, you can see that this story and of your Judy Huth really doesn't have much merit. And this is all more about white supremacists wanting to get a symbolic victory to say that they won. Because when it comes down to the white supremacists, all he or she wants to say is that they won and that they put the black person in their place. They want to get some sort of win, and like O.J. Simpson, they just want to say that they got a win, even though they did not get a win at all. If anything, this shows how pathetic many of the white supremacists in Hollywood truly are, that they're just lobbing these Hail Marys, hoping to get any sort of win so that they can have their smooth world where Bill Cosby can be the bad guy, but never once looking at the culpability of the victim here, who says she was a minor at the time. And the critical question most people are asking is, why is a minor at the Playboy Mansion, and why didn't security do something about this minor at the time? Now, your Hugh Hefner, knowing how controversial pornography was in the 70s, I know he wouldn't have allowed a minor on his premises, because he knew, with pornography being a major controversial issue in the 70s, he didn't want any sort of negative press or negative heat on his mansion and on his platform, because if a minor were found on Playboy in the 1970s, as Judy Huth alleges, it would have been a major scandal, and it would have been a scandal major enough to put Playboy Enterprises out of business. Because if we look at history and the context of history, pornography in the 70s was very controversial. And you had guys like Larry Flint out here who were being sued on the regular, and you had a whole lot of people protesting porn theaters because we were in the middle of the feminist movement. So this whole incident with your Judy Huth, possibly if it had exploded, would have destroyed Playboy Enterprises' reputation, and it would have destroyed the entire business, because they took it very seriously about minors being around adult entertainment. I mean, if we go further to the 80s and we go to the Tracy Lords scandal, I mean, the porn industry basically had to destroy numerous videos because Tracy Lords was in them, but they want us to believe that Judy Huth was going to be on the premises of the Playboy Mansion, and people were just going to allow this to happen, when if you took a critical look at history, this whole type of incident, again, would have been a major scandal, because if they were destroying Tracy Lords tapes in the late 80s, and it was going on in the mid 70s, as Judy Huff alleges, this would have been a major scandal, and this would have practically put Playboy Enterprises out of business, and it would have destroyed Bill Cosby's reputation before he even got out of the gate in the 1980s. So that's why when I look at Judy Huff's story, it doesn't ring true, because when I look at it in the context of history, it doesn't really fit in the timeline of history as related to these adult enterprises. When these adult enterprises started out in the late in the seven, as become popular in the 70s, they were very tight and meticulous about their records, tight and meticulous about their security, but none of that evidence seemed to matter to the jury, who was focusing on opinion, because that's what happens in a civil court. People focus on their opinions, and because they focus mostly on their opinions, they can use that to sway the preponderance of evidence, and your white supremacists can get the ruling that they want and say that they won when they actually did not win. Because if you looked at the evidence based on the facts of the evidence, you can see that this woman's story has no real credibility, because if a person had something like this happen to them, they would have definitely gone to the police. They would have filed a police report. And your Bill Cosby, again, he was not a major star in 1975. Yes, he may have done a movie or two here or there. And they still would have been able to go out here and get Mr. Cosby arrested back then for this type of story. And this kind of scandal would have exploded all across Hollywood, and it would have again put Playboy Enterprises out of business. That's why I know this story has no credibility, and it's all again another campaign by the white supremacists to malign the reputation and malign the image of Bill Cosby. And it's clear that somebody is obsessed with Bill Cosby, because even with seeing the conviction overturned as related to the criminal trial, these people continue persisting because they want to win at any cost. And because they're so obsessed with trying to destroy Mr. Cosby, we see that they have become basically fanatical and even, as I see it, psychotic, because most people would take the L and keep it moving, but when it comes down to a white supremacist, they want to be right at any cost, and because they want to be right at any cost, they will literally twist the truth in order to make the lies that they want be true. And that's what we're seeing here with the case of Judy Huff as related to this alleged assault that took place at the Playboy Mansion. It is basically a case of white supremacists trying to rewrite the story and rewrite the narrative to make this outcome come out like they want. But when they do that, they show us how they are just warped in their whole perception of reality. And we're seeing that this whole quest to get Bill Cosby and destroy his legacy is bordering on insanity, because only an insane person is going to continue going after an individual, even though they have already proven to have won. And at 84 years old, your Bill Cosby has already shown that he's already established his legacy, and there's no way that you can tear his legacy down at this point. But people over at whatever in Hollywood, these white supremacists are obsessed with him, and they're obsessed with tearing down his legacy, even though there are people out here who have participated in truly some disturbing things, like your Stephen Collins, your Roman Polanski, your Woody Allen. I mean, where are the lawsuits on these guys? And where are the lawsuits as related to many of the white men who were a part of the Me Too movement? It seems to me strange that there's this fixation on Mr. Cosby, and that people won't leave Bill Cosby alone. And it just again shows me how obsessed your white supremacists are as related to black men who have gone out here and achieved and accomplished something, and how they will go to any lengths to tear that black man down. And that's what I'm seeing here as related to this judgment against Bill Cosby. This was not a judgment as related to a victory similar to what Johnny Depp got against Amber Heard. No, this was an empty, symbolic, Pyrrhic victory from white supremacists. desperate to get a win against a black man, and shows us how much of a loser these white supremacists are and how much of a sore loser they are as related to their failed campaigns to tear down one of the great black men in Black America. Now, my new comic, John Haynes at Death's Door, is now available on Kickstarter, and I really need your support to get this project funded. And every pledge helps me get to produce more positive black comics and share them with you. So if you could go over to put in a pledge to the John Haynes at Death's Door Kickstarter by clicking a link in the description box, that would be greatly appreciated. And if you want to read more about John's story, you can head over to Amazon.com and pick up the books of the John Haynes series in paperback and Kindle format. And if you want to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, E-Steam Horror of the Hyena Woman. Hell's aspiring angel takes on a wicked werewolf in this action-packed all-new E-Steam series adventure. Get E-Steam Horror of the Hyena Woman in paperback and e-readers today. Now available in paperback and e-readers, ISIS Legacy. Sorority secrets of the goddess next door are revealed in this all-new ISIS series adventure. Get ISIS Legacy in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere.